Ribhu Gita Chapter 16, verse 23. I indeed am you yourself. I am the self of all, devoid of all. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman. I am higher than the highest. I indeed am you yourself. What is yourself? How do you differentiate between I and you? If you do not define yourself in terms of the body, what distinguishes you from I? If the self is bodiless and also egoless, without the notion of a separate individuality, what remains to be called yourself? It is not something, it is not nothing. I am the self of all, devoid of all. What is the self but existence? The existence that is the nature of all contains no objects. Existence is devoid of all, yet is all, the sole existent reality. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman. Brahman is to be realized by non-objective knowledge. In such knowledge, being is itself the knowing. Existence is itself the knowledge. That existence, consciousness, knowledge is the one without a second, that is, the Supreme Brahman. Inquire to know the self, and you will know Brahman. And the self that you know, that Brahman that you know, is what you are, so that your very existence is the knowledge. Your very existence is Brahman. There is no other to be called I. I am higher than the highest. Highness is determined by the degree of ego dissolution. The less of an ego there is, the higher one is. I am higher than the highest. Where the ego is not, measuring is not. How to measure the self? It is immeasurable. That which is I, that is, which is the self, is formless and objectless. Beyond definition, immeasurable, utterly non-differentiated. It is that in which even the definitions of high and beyond no longer hold. To know how this is true, to realize this as your knowledge, inquire profoundly in a non-objective manner. Who am I? Verse 24. Ego there is none for me, no sorrow and no faults exist for me. No happiness exists for me. There is no knowledge or intellect for me. No thinking or mind for me. No body for me, and no senses for me. Who are you? Have you ever discerned what the ego is? It appears as an assumption, the bare supposition of existing as an individual entity. But has anyone actually experienced it? Do you know what it is? Ego, there is none for me. What is the nature of for me? In other words, what truly is you and yours? The limited individual being or ego assumption is not you and not yours. What is truly you? What is truly yours? Whatever is truly you is you always. The ego is not that. What is truly yours is always yours and never lost. The ego is not that. No sorrow and no faults exists for me. The realm of grief and sorrow, that is to say, suffering, is born of delusion. Its substance is ignorance. It is not real. Your nature is Sat-Chit-Ananda, Being-Consciousness-Bliss. Existence will not cease to exist ever, so there is no sorrow. for you. Consciousness shines always and never is unknowing. No faults exist for me in the activities of the body, speech, and mind. There are faults. Where existence consciousness is where Ananda bliss is. And where there is bliss, where there is knowledge, where there is true being, there is no fault. Become aware, fully knowing that perfect fullness, which alone is the self. The perfection that is you, the perfection that is yours, will never be tainted by sorrow. By inquiry, remove the erroneous notions of being other than that supreme Brahman, that Being-Consciousness-Bliss. In the domain of the mind, there are ups and downs, sorrows and faults, unhappiness and happiness. But there is something that transcends the mind. Identify yourself with that. There is no knowledge for me, or there is no intellect for me, no thinking for me, or no mind for me. If such is so, you must realize your nature beyond thought. Something knows all thinking, but is itself unthought of. What is that? You know all your thoughts. None of those thoughts are a definition of you. So, not defining yourself in terms of the mind or intellect, thought and thinking. What are you? There is no knowledge for me, no thinking for me, no body for me, and no senses for me. If you are not the mind or intellect, what are you? And how do you expect to know it? Transcendent of thought is real knowledge. Beyond the mind is your being. For me, there is no body. Bodiless is your nature. The body is not I. Its attributes are not I. Its qualities or gunas are not I. All that you know of the body and of the world is what is perceived by the senses. But the senses are not you. You are neither something sensed, nor are you a sensing entity. No body for me, and no senses for me. Not perceived, not conceived. What is the self? Who are you? Verse 25. Lineage there is none for me. There are no eyes for me, no role or adept for me. Nothing of the least or trivial for me. Japa there is none for me. No mantra, no world, no friend exists for me. Lineage there is none for me. What then is your source? From where have you come? There are no eyes for me. You are the unseen, and beyond all the seeing. No role for me. The self is not acting out any part. No adept for me. Power and perfection and peace lie beyond the appearances of any individual. Nothing of the least or trivial for me. Only the vast Brahman is the reality. There is nothing small in it, and nothing beyond it. Japa there is none for me. No mantra, no world, no friend exists for me. Even all these spiritual practices are not for the self. The self has no mantra. The self has no japa. The self in which there are no others has no friend. The self which is non-objective existence has no world. For me, what is truly yours? What is truly you? Verse 26. Relatives there are none for me. No enemies exist for me. No mother and no father exist for me. There is nothing to be experienced for me. No experiencer for me. No activity for me. And no lineage for me. Who are you? And in the light of such knowledge, who are your relatives? No enemies exist for me. One who knows the self is the self of all. And his peace and happiness are never interrupted. There is nothing else to oppose his very existence, which he knows as the existence of all. No mother and no father exist for me. Then where is yourself? Where is your source? There is nothing to be experienced. The self is not an experience. What comes goes. Every experience comes and eventually goes. But the self does not come and go. So all knowledge of it is regarded as direct experience. It is quite beyond the domain of experience. Your existence is not an experience, and self-realization is your existence. There is no experiencer. So who experiences what? No activity for me, and no lineage for me. You never act. You are always silent and unmoving. Therefore, in the knowledge of yourself, beyond all sense of doing, there is perfect peace. The word for activity is vritti, which also means thought. So an activity of the mind, or a mode of mind. These are never for you. Abide without misidentifying with such. Verse 27. Caste there is none for me, no community, no study of the Vedas are there for me, never for me. Exterior there is none for me, No knowledge is there for me. No place or peer exists for me. All these things are not for me. What is it that is truly you? What is it that is truly yours? Exterior there is none for me. That which has no exterior is infinite. No knowledge, that is, no objective knowledge, is there for me. No place or peer exists for me, or no place or age exists for me. Things pertaining to traditions, things pertaining to societal situations, none of these touch the reality of the self. Even the study of the Vedas is not for the self. What are you? What do you know always? What do you experience always? It is not in a place. It is not in a time. There is nothing like it. It is the truth. The self is the truth. The self alone knows itself. Know yourself by profound inquiry. Verse 28. Philosophy or tattvam, there is none for me. No world exists for me. No peace is there for me. No line of descent exists for me. Anger there is none for me. Nor is there desire for me. I am only of Brahman alone. Philosophy or tattvam, the attempt to define the factors that make up for experience, is not the way to realize. In Vedanta it is said there is only one tattva. It is the truth. But otherwise, it would be mere illusion and is tossed aside in the course of one's inquiry to know the self. No world exists for me. Just as there is no I, there is likewise no this. Without conceiving of a world, where are you? You'll recall I already said you are bodiless and beyond the senses. Now also the world is abandoned as unreal. Where are you? What are you? No peace is there for me. Peace is not something attained. Peace is itself what you are. Anger there is none for me, nor is there desire for me. Anger, desire, lack of peace, etc. All of these depend on misidentification in order to appear. With misidentification, existence seems as if held. Consciousness appears as if ignorant. And the nature and source of happiness are not realized. But for you, as your unchanging existence, what is there to desire? Over what should you become angry? In this way, you find yourself to be the happiness. And you never lose it. What then is you? What then is yours? He declares the truth. I am only of Brahman alone. I am only of Brahman alone. Om Namah Shivaya.